Hi, this is my book review of the New Learning Commons, Where Learners Win. I thought I would start off with a comic, because usually when you do a public presentation, you start off with a joke. And my favorite was this one right here, where in the beginning, the librarian's like, you don't need any more books. And then after, the librarian says, you can have as many as you can responsibly handle. This is the librarian I want to be. I love books. I want the kids to love books. I want to make sure that they have as much access as they can possibly have. And I'm not there to hoard them. I'm there to give them out and get the kids using them. All right, so then step B, I have a quote here that I really love. And it is by Heidi Hayes Jacobs. And it says, rather than being victimized by our program structures, we should be creating new types of learning environments for a new time and for various types of teaching and learning. Not to do so is a declaration not to learn. Now, I think this is really important because I do believe libraries are changing, schools are changing, the world is changing. If we don't get with the program, how can we expect the kids to? So that's part of why I think this is important. But I think the other reason why I think this is important is because it's all about thinking, how can we do this differently? What can we do different? What is working, what is not working, and how can we work around the situation today to make something better for tomorrow? Which I think is probably one of the best things about this class so far has been I've been learning about ways to rethink what you do and how you can alter your current school or your current situation and make it better. And I think that's a really important thing about being a librarian, but I also think it's a really important thing about being a modern librarian. All right, and a totally different side note, not totally important, but important to me. I noticed that there was a link here to Kim Cofino, and I've been to a lot of teaching conferences in Asia, and she's great. She's everywhere, but she's great. She's the first person I saw do a really good presentation on digital citizenship and engaging the kids, which is something else I'm going to talk about from this book, in their responsibility and in their roles as digital citizens and what it means to be in all those different realms, the physical realm and the virtual realm. So moving on to C, point C in my presentation, is that same kind of concept, that we are making this virtual commons so that we can provide the kids with a place for them to showcase their learning, but also we're creating kids that have a digital portfolio that they themselves are keeping and monitoring, and that they're aware of the importance of this, but at the same time, the virtual library commons is a place for them to be a star, but also a place for them to learn to manage their digital presence. All right, and then moving on to D. All right, and it's the same thing here that I wrote, which again, hard to see my highlighting, but learners take pride in their creation because they're archived in the commons and they're available to the world, but also the other part, which is just down here a little bit further, that learners, no matter the culture, the skill, the interest level, the language ability, the disability, the super ability, know that the Learning Commons is a cool place for them to get what they need. So it's not a place for just some kids, it's a place for all kids, and that's a really important point. I think I want my students to feel that every single one of them has something that they can learn, and at the same time something that they can gain from their time in the Learning Commons. And then moving on to E, and this kind of brings back to the Kim Cofino point, which is that if we allow students to get involved in the decision-making process, and it's written they can, but I would imply students can and should be involved in all types of policy decisions such as safety, digital citizenships, various platforms, connections, as well as various software and tools they need to learn and be creative. I have been teaching for a long time, and as a teacher, I wish that I had been consulted when decisions were made. And I'm sure the kids feel the same way. Sometimes the school decisions feel like, just someone like this unknown man, woman, whatever, makes the decision for the school, and no one understands why this platform was chosen or that platform was chosen, and then the support's not there for how are we going to make this work, and it's frustrating. And I think, I feel that frustration. I'm sure the kids feel that frustration. If we realize that we're in this together and we work together and we involve them and we engage ourselves, then I just think everyone will learn more, and it will be a better place for everyone, instead of everything being top down and having one person make a decision. That you maybe involve many people and you have a committee, and ultimately one person has to decide a lot of times, but it doesn't mean that other people shouldn't have input, and especially the kids, because they think and they are users of this equipment and technology, and sometimes they know things that we don't know. And it would be better to have their input on the front end than at the end after you're frustrated with something not working and realizing the kids could have told you this was not going to work. All right, and then moving on, going to my point F, which I have here. It's also kind of about the kids and the tech team. And it was saying how the tech squad, when you allow them to engage and have an opportunity, that they feel trusted and that it kind of brings power to them. But I would say it also brings power to the other kids, because if students are seen as trustworthy and given power and control, then other children will feel like, okay, if I go in there and I have this idea and I want to talk to someone about it, they might listen to me. And I think it's important to kind of foster that, because I do think that a lot of kids, we're learning in my reference class about students not feeling comfortable coming to ask reference questions. And I think it's the same idea with the Learning Commons being a place where students feel comfortable to ask questions, but also to have ideas and implement, different plans. That if you encourage them thinking and feeling like they have a say, then it's going to foster a better community for everyone. All right, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yes, I know my alphabet. And then the next part, it says, the adults not only coach young people how to stay safe crossing the street or on the playing ground, but in the neighborhood, they do so virtually. Because I think the other problem that I have with the current model is that I have a Twitter account, and someone recently posted, we feel unsafe about letting kids go to dances without chaperones, yet at the same time we allow them to be on Facebook without chaperones. And I think it's the same thing. If we aren't with them, showing them, guiding them, talking them through, then yeah, they're going to run into problems, and they're never going to know how we would have solved it or how we would have handled it. And we need to engage them and show, model, whatever you want to describe it as, appropriate ways of communicating who you are and what you believe online, but also using the tools, which leads me to my next point, which is that when you incorporate teaching staff, right, in the Learning Commons, the leadership team is a few teachers who experiment, demonstrate, and then over time will recruit others. So again, if you're engaging the teaching staff and you're modeling with them, but they're also modeling to the kids, this is this new thing, we're going to try it out, and this is how it's going to work, then you have more engagement, because now you've invited teachers to the table. So you have teachers, you have students, and everyone feels welcome and everyone wants to contribute because they feel like they were invited. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. All right, and this is, as you can see, which you can't see, but in my own little personal handwriting, I wrote, I like this while I was reading this, and that is, if teachers wish to keep up with their students, then they will need to meet them in their world. That is just one advantage of keeping up. With each new technology we are learning new ways of improving who we are, what we know, and how we live, and how we can use this knowledge to make a difference in the world. And that's what it's really all about. We want to all make a difference, and if we engage the faculty and we engage the staff, then we all can make that difference. And then this right here is just a total master list of ways to seek improvement. And I notice how I circled the very bottom one, which is the Teacher Big Think. I think you could use any one of these, but you really always want to have this one at the end so that you can evaluate after the fact, was this action research project worthwhile? What did we gain from the teacher journaling project or peer teaching or whatever it is that you're using? You always want to have that reflective piece. And then on that same kind of note, moving on to the very end of the book, this last chapter is my absolute favorite. And that's because it has just great ideas, fabulous ideas. Some things I've heard of, some things I didn't know, and people I didn't know. I don't know David Warlick, but now I do. And reading this gave me one more resource, one more place to go for information, but also another person to be able to talk about. You know, if a teacher comes in and says, I just read, what do you think? You know, it's hard to keep up with every single book out there and every single workshop leader. And this is a really good resource for kind of summarizing trends or topics that are really popular or that are really working at different schools and why they're working at different schools. And this is really useful, this last part.